All right, another PHEV video. Snowed again last night, but I got up at 5:30 this morning to snow blow, so we are good to go. And I've had people asking, what is the car getting in hybrid mode? So what we're going to do today is burn off a little bit of electricity, push the save button, which is going to put the car into hybrid mode. Then we're going to drive around town for an hour and a half doing all our running around, and we'll just see what we get for liters per 100 kilometers in town hybrid driving. So it's going to be a very wet liters per 100 kilometers test. We're going to be all over the road, slushy and wet and slidey, but that'll be worst case conditions. What is the car getting in hybrid mode? So I have started the dog, and we'll just take a quick look at these stats. 35.2 amp hours, 92.6% capacity, and this one is for Andy. He wanted to see the battery. Temperatures are 5 degrees Celsius for minimum and maximum 6 degrees Celsius. So this is right after starting the vehicle. There's your voltages as well, Andy. I don't know what you want to see, but there is the most left screen that you requested. So, okay, I mentioned before, guys, a trick I like to use when the car is going to go into hybrid mode and I'm out on the highway, you've used all of your batteries. I like to actually push the car, push the save mode with 5 or 6 kilometers worth of travel left in the batteries. Now, my reasoning for that is I think the car will actually use those extra kilowatt hours as it needs it. If you're going to accelerate to pass somebody, to climb a hill, then it's got extra power in there. I know the car saves 30% battery, and if you let the battery completely discharge and let it go into hybrid mode on its own, I don't think it uses that 30% even if you need it. So there could be times when you have no electric power. So I make sure that, it's just my personal preference, if I've got 5 or 6 kilometers left, I'm on the highway, I know the car's going to go into hybrid mode, I push the save button at that point, so the car does have a little bit of extra electricity that it can use if it needs it. What you'll see happen is when you push the save mode, your car will actually still use electricity and use about 3 kilometers worth of electricity before the engine starts and it starts charging the battery again. So theoretically, even with a full battery, you could push the save button and turn the car into hybrid mode right off the bat, because it will drain a little bit, then the engine starts, it fills it back up to the same level as where you pushed the save button, and then it goes back into hybrid mode and it just continues to cycle over and over. So as I said, guys, real sloppy, yucky driving out there today. So this actual test for hybrid mode should be a worst case scenario. So, you know, if we end up getting 7 point whatever, which is what I'm guesstimating we're going to get, is right around 7 liters. I don't know. We'll see. That's not bad if you consider we're driving in this slop. So we started with 34 kilometers on the gasometer. We've come 1.3 kilometers, and I'm just going to let that burn, you know, another 4 kilometers worth before we put it in hybrid mode. School buses were actually canceled this morning, so this is the kind of day where you're going to see guys in the ditch, the ones that haven't slowed down. I'm pretty much betting we're going to come across 1 or 2 of them anyway. I shouldn't say that with a smile, but it is what it is. You know what? Some people just don't learn. So it's actually -1 right now. That means things are starting to freeze up. It is pretty slippery, and we're going to be extra careful today. Okay, 5 kilometers, 30 kilometers left on the gasometer. We are going to push the save button now. So the rest of this trip, we are going to run in hybrid mode. I don't know if we're going to get 60 kilometers worth of driving in here. I got a bunch of chores and running around to do. And we'll actually run the heat. If the car is going to be using fuel anyway, we might as well do it in comfort. Lots of snow plows out today. I actually feel horrible driving around using fuel right now when I have electricity, but the test must be done, so I'm doing what needs to be done. That's what I'm telling myself. I guess I should be telling myself, think of all of those cars that are going to be purchased after watching this video, and people who will be driving around using electricity will more than make up for what I'm burning right now in fuel. That's what I'll tell myself. So let's talk numbers, seeing as this is a hybrid test. My 7-month average is just over 6 liters per 100 kilometers for hybrid mode. It all depends on what you've got in the car, guys, where you're going. Are you on the highway? Are you in town? But I would give you a general guesstimate of liters per 100 kilometers in hybrid mode for this vehicle is between 6.3 and 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers. And it will vary depending on those other factors that I just mentioned: weight, road conditions, temperatures, all of that stuff. But for a big heavy vehicle like this thing is, 7.3 liters is, that's worst case scenario hybrid mode. That's fantastic. I can compare this for you guys. 10 years ago, I owned the Ford Escape Hybrid, which was not a plug-in, just a hybrid, and I got 8.2 liters per 100 kilometers average in 4 years of driving that thing. So we've come down a full liter per 100 kilometers in hybrid mode alone, not even including what this car can do when you're plugging it in. When you plug it in, my average is under 3 liters per 100 kilometers. I'm about 2.9 liters per 100 kilometers if you include my electric plug-in numbers. Not a PHEV tip, but if you want to stay happily married and you're driving across town anyway, stop and grab your wife a tea or a coffee. Just pop in and say, "Hey, was thinking of you." I know all the tricks, guys, trust me. McDonald's has their buck of coffee on right now, so it's not going to hurt your wallet too bad. And when you give her the coffee, don't make jokes about putting extra sweetener in there, because that never goes over well either. So yeah, so the roads are even worse than I thought they were going to be today. They're absolutely horrible. These are the worst conditions that you can get to drive in. I don't think you can actually get any worse. We got 3 or 4 inches of slop on the roads, and even with really good winter tires and all-wheel drive, I'm feeling it sliding and really working to keep the vehicle moving through this stuff. So this is actually going to be a great test in terms of liters per 100 kilometers. This is worst case scenario, guys. I don't drive in any worse than this. I probably shouldn't be out driving in this today. It really is that bad. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys, we are down to 18 kilometers on the gasometer. We've come 45 kilometers of driving. When we started, I'm pretty sure we were at 24 kilometers when I pushed the save button. So that kind of tells me that the car is using a little bit more electric energy when it needs it, which is what I kind of suspected before. So between the heat being on and I guess the tires spinning and all of that in these wet, crummy conditions, it's using more than it normally would. So what I'm getting at is that if you had pushed the save button when you had no energy left in the battery, your fuel consumption would be higher, because your engine would have to work harder to make up that energy loss. So what I'm seeing here is very similar to what I saw when I was towing with the vehicle. If you tow with a heavy load that's 1,500 pounds, which is the maximum this vehicle can do, if you're right up near that maximum load, I pushed the save button before and I mentioned that the car could not keep up, that the amount of battery was slowly coming down even though we were in save mode. And I'm seeing the same thing happening here with these really slushy, snow-covered roads, and the car's working really hard. It's actually taking more battery power than it's putting in. So we've got 19 kilometers saved right now, and we've got a really big hill to go down, so I'm going to try to recoup a little bit of energy here if we can. This is actually Airport Hill in North Bay. We'll see what we can recoup just going down this one hill. I've got it on B2 right now, because with the slush we're moving pretty slow. But we've come up to 21. See if we can get 22 out of this. Is this cheating on my test? No, because I had to climb the other side of the hill to get up there, and we had to stop and get a part for the chainsaw, so it's all legal. Look at that, guys, back up to 22. 11 bucks for an oil cap. Are you kidding me? I only paid 200 bucks for the chainsaw. So it's a little bit weird. Went back through a section of town, and now the engine is running again at 23 kilometers, which is what I noted earlier. I said I thought we had pushed save with 24 kilometers left on there. So for a while it was losing, it couldn't keep up. And now that we're back in slower town area, it's gone back to its original spot, right around the 24 kilometer mark here. So absolutely, that shows that when we were climbing that great big hilly section there, and all this slush, that the engine was requesting help from the batteries, and because there was actual battery power in there, it used it, and the battery level was dropping. And then as soon as we came down the back side of the hill and came back into a section of town, it started saving the energy again, and it caught back up from 18 kilometers to 24, and the engine just shut off. Right there, we're back in electric mode at 24 kilometers saved. All right, we are just pulling back into my driveway right now, and I just wanted to say, what a guess, 65.7 kilometers. Apparently I left my garage open all morning. Nice. Damn. And we're still showing 23 kilometers on the guessometer, and I'll show you guys the eco information. Drum roll. 7.2 liters per 100 kilometers. That's actually better than I thought it was going to be, considering the road conditions. And 46% of our 65.8 kilometers was done on electric. We'll also take a look at the dog numbers. And usually what I'm finding, guys, is that the car, this is the first car that I've ever seen this, it actually guesses on the wrong side. It'll say 7.2 liters, but in fact, we actually use a little bit less than that. If I were to go fill the car up and do the calculation of distance divided by liters times 100, I would actually get a better number than 7.2, but we'll go with 7.2 because that's what the computer is telling us, and we'll look at the dog now and see what it's telling us. Okay, so apparently the dog stopped working here right at the end, and I didn't catch that, so we only got 53 out of our 65 kilometers recorded, but it was saying 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. 1 hour and 19 minutes. 5.6% glide. Look how low that number is today, and that's just the slush and crap that we were driving through. We did regenerate more than normal, which is 17%, and I think that's because everybody's going slower, and we were just stop and go a lot more in this these conditions, so we regenerated quite a bit more than we normally would. And let's take a look here. So 38.3% is what it's saying. If we look at the consumption numbers, 8.6 amp hours, 7.8 kilowatts per 100 kilometers, 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. What we'll do is we'll just average out the 7.2 liters according to the PHEV versus the 7.6 from the Watchdog, and that'll give us 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers in the absolute worst winter driving conditions, and that is your hybrid liters per 100 kilometers, guys, and that's right in that range that I told you we were going to get when we headed out. So that is no different than the numbers that I'm getting. That's worst case scenario. Over the last 7.5 months, that's what I've seen. Worst case scenario, we're up around 7.3, 7.5 liters, and best case, we're down to 6 to 6.3. So those are your hybrid numbers for the 2018 PHEV Outlander. So for being winter conditions, guys, I mean, absolutely, I can't describe to you how bad these conditions were for driving today. To get 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers is actually, I'm happy with that. I'm a little bit surprised that it was that good. We're talking winter tires and the worst conditions you can have. So I can't say enough good things about this vehicle and the money that I'm saving and the pollution that I'm not putting out by driving it. So it's a combination, guys. I can't recommend the PHEV enough. I love mine. Everyone asks, do you recommend it? Absolutely. I might be making a car payment right now, but this car will pay for itself because I'm going to keep it for 10 years.